For years and years, both of these methods have been around, but they've never been more prevalent and more prominent for real estate investors than they are right now. There's a lot of joys to owning real estate, and if you own it for a really long time and let someone else pay off that mortgage over the next 10 or 15 years, you're going to hit a grand slam home run every single time. Here's what I really like about seller financing right now is when I can find a tired landlord, they're in the business of collecting rental income. They know that going to the bank has become more difficult and that interest rates are high anyways, and so the cost of money is expensive. So there's lots of reasons that people will be motivated to sell you these seller finance deals. There's a lot of ways for real estate investors to make money. This is a couple of methods that we're using right now in 2024 to increase our rental portfolio, both in the States and on the island of Puerto Rico. Hey guys, I know you want to be a real estate investor and that's why you're loving our content. You've smashed the subscribe button, you're liking all our stuff, you're even commenting on it. But if you want to kickstart your real estate investing career, we're inviting you to join us on the Apex group over on School. Over there, we've got a community of like-minded real estate investors and entrepreneurs, and we're doing deals together, we're networking together, and we've got courses, we've got master classes. Guys, you'll have access to Q&As with me and the rest of the team. It's a $50 a month investment, and if you want to network with us, come and join us on the School platform. The link's in the description. Today, guys, I'm going to talk about how I'm currently scaling my rental portfolio in Florida and in Puerto Rico. I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can jump on board, jump on the train, and start doing this whether you're a seasoned pro or a brand new beginner who's never done it before. And don't worry, with both of these strategies, you don't need a ton of money to do it. And even if you don't have any money at all, we're going to address how you can find great deals and then get the deals funded so that you have rental properties in your portfolio and no money out of your own pocket. My two strategies that I want to talk to you about today are buying properties subject to and seller financing. Now, if you're watching a YouTube video about becoming a real estate investor in 2024, you've very likely already come across these two terms, and I want to tell you why. Because for years and years, both of these methods have been around, but they've never been more prevalent and more prominent for real estate investors than they are right now. So very recently, just a couple of years ago, interest rates were at an all-time low, like practically free. Things were less than 3%, just ridiculously low interest rates. And those people that have those mortgages on their houses that are trying to sell now in markets where they don't have any equity or it's not moving fast, maybe they've gotten themselves in some trouble because of divorce or because of bankruptcy, who knows why they're in trouble, but they still have these mortgages on these properties at these really, really low rates. And the good news for you is that these mortgages have been out there for a couple of years. So when you can buy a property subject to, you get to take over that person's mortgage without ever assuming it, without ever going to the bank, and without ever qualifying. There's some risk, we'll get into that, but there's a lot of benefit to this. The biggest benefit, obviously, is being able to come into a property where somebody's borrowed the money at these really low rates, buy it, start paying the bank directly, put a renter in there, let the renter pay off your mortgage, so you don't have to do these high margin deals. These can be very low margin deals. They're really easy for real estate investors who don't have a lot of money to get into. So for years and years, the best way to buy something was always to buy it cash at the lowest price possible. But right now, a really good way is to take over someone else's already existing mortgage, and we call that subject to. Let me explain again real quick what subject to is. It's a real estate investing strategy where you're taking over someone else's loan. So they've got the really good loan, the less than, let's say, 5% interest rate, and they can't sell the property for whatever reason, and you come in and you negotiate a price with them where you give them a little bit of cash, they deed you the property, and you start making the payment directly to the bank. No assumption necessary, no credit necessary, and obviously when you're doing this kind of investing, it's very little money out of pocket because there's not a ton of equity in these deals. But generally speaking, the houses are going to be in pretty good shape. The banks were lending on them just a couple of years ago. So unless the people have just beaten the crap out of the house over the last 2 years, the house is still going to be in good condition. And as you move out the seller, you can move in a renter. And oftentimes your renter's going to come in and he's going to be able to pay a higher rental rate than you're paying to the bank. So let me give you a real life example of a sub-2 deal that I just did to build my real estate portfolio in Orlando, Florida. We found a house where the guy had actually passed away away, and we took over the mortgage. It was about $20,000 in arrears. It was in foreclosure, and the lady who was inheriting it didn't have the money to bring it out of foreclosure. So she inherited it. We helped her take it through probate. I brought $20,000 to the table, and I brought the loan current with the bank. I then gave the lady another $20,000, so I had like $40,000 plus the cost of probate and closing costs. It was about $50K of my own cash, all in on this rental property that I bought in Altamont Springs, Florida. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It was in very good condition. The mortgage that I took over was at like 4 or 4.5%. I don't remember exactly, but a very, very low mortgage rate. And the loan had been in existence for like 3 to 5 years. So a 30-year amortized fixed rate loan that's been in existence for 4 or 5 years. So it's just really, really magical. I get to take advantage of that low interest rate. I'm paying the bank directly. I have very little money out of pocket, only 50 grand. We rented it immediately for $1,900 a month, and our all-in principal, interest, and taxes insurance on this particular deal was $900 a month. So I've got $1,000 a month, give or take, $1,100 if everything goes well on a good month. But factoring in vacancies and some repairs, I've got roughly $800 to $1,000 a month of positive cash flow from day one with almost no renovations whatsoever. It's a brilliant way to be able to add to our rental portfolio. We're about to close on another one that looks a lot like that. It's a little bit cheaper deal in Daytona Beach, Florida, where we're taking over a loan for like $115,000, and it's basically almost the same math. I'm going to bring $15,000 to bring it current. I'm going to give the guy who's selling it, he's not inherited it, he just is moving out. I'm going to give him about $15,000, so I'm going to have $30,000 in it, and I'm going to need to go in and do some minor repairs to get the property up to where it will cash flow. I'll be able to rent that property out for like $1,650 a month, and the monthly mortgage payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is like $750 a month. So again, I'm going to have $30,000 or $40,000 out, and I'm going to be bringing in a positive cash flow of about $1,000 a month. And then, by the way, I'm going to be having a renter who moves into the property and pays for the property for me. And I don't have to make a ton of money on these. Like, these things are cash flowing really well. But even if I wasn't making very much cash flow at all, if it was perhaps less money out of pocket and no cash flow, I'd be happy to do those deals too. So you can do very tight margin deals, very little money out of pocket, and you can get yourself a rental portfolio that has cash flow, is getting appreciation. You can depreciate. You get all of the joys of ownership, all of the benefits and the tax breaks, all of the stuff that you get from being a landlord. And guys, I tell this all the time. If you can buy something today and hang on to it, have it cash flow for the next 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 years, you're going to hit a grand slam home run every single time. On the 2 deals that I'm talking about, both of them have some equity. So we're buying them even with some equity. And then over time, that equity is just going to soar, and the renter's going to pay down the mortgage. This is a brilliant way for us to increase our rental portfolio. Hopefully, you're picking up on what these benefits are. So the benefits to buying subject to, you don't have to go to the bank and qualify. You don't have to have great credit. You don't have to get the house appraised. You get to move so fast and take advantage of something where somebody's already paid for that, and you don't have to pay for it. You're getting it subject to what they've already done a couple of years ago. On these deals, when you're taking these over, you have very low risk. Of course, there is something called a due on sale clause, and you need to be aware of it, but it's not the boogeyman that you need to be afraid of. As long as you're making the payment to the bank every single month, the bank is generally speaking not going to call the loan due, even though they have the right to do it. If they were to call the loan due, then you would need to be able to go and find other financing or sell the property. So just keep that in mind. But having done this for 25 years, we've done dozens of these. I'm not the beat-all, end-all, Pace Morby expert of this, but I've done it enough. I've never had one of these loans called due, and we've been doing them for a long period of time. So in today's market, again, as long as you're making the payment to the bank's not going to want to foreclose on you. They just want to get paid. So how do you find these people that will actually sell to you subject to? A lot of times you're going to find them when they're already in distress. I like to look at the foreclosure list, look at people who are already behind on their payment. You could call it pre-foreclosure, because in the States, if the bank hasn't foreclosed on you at the foreclosure sale, then generally speaking, the homeowner still owns the property and you're still negotiating with the homeowner. So you want to find people who are in distress, who are going to lose the property to the bank. That's one way that you can find people. The other thing that you can do is simply go on Zillow and find the stuff that's been on Zillow for a long period of time. So if you're like me in a market like Orlando, Florida, where properties generally are selling in 30, 60, or 90 days, and you see something that's been on the market for the longer part of that time, 90 days, maybe 120 days or longer, then you have a pretty good idea that they probably don't have a ton of equity. And so if that's true, you can offer them close to their asking price and actually give them money when they don't have a ton of equity. How does that work? So let's say someone's asking $300,000 for their property and they owe $280,000. And so they've had it on the market for a long period of time, and everybody's offering them $250,000, $260,000, even $280,000, which would mean that after closing costs and paying their realtor, the seller would have to come to the table with money, with cash out of pocket. And so they're just unable to take those deals. But you can come in, buy it subject to their loan, and actually put some cash in their pocket because you don't have to go get a new mortgage. You don't have to bring all of the cash to the table. So as long as you can buy something that cash flows, has a little bit more from the rents coming in than going out to the interest rate or to the mortgage payment, then that's a good deal. And guys, these can be low margin deals. You don't have to make a ton of money on these things. You want to get something that probably at least bare minimum breaks even. When you're negotiating the terms on a subject to deal, you want to look at what the people are paying on the mortgage. You want to get the bank statements and see what they owe on a monthly basis. Does it cover principal and interest, taxes and insurance? If it does, that's really good. If it doesn't, then you need to factor in what are the taxes and then the insurance going to cost you as well. You want to make sure that your rental income is going to be at least even or slightly higher than, and I would actually suggest slightly higher than what's going out to the bank so that you have a safe deal, because these are tight deals. There's not a ton of equity in them. You want to make sure that you're going to break even at least. You're going to be able to make money in other ways. You're going to be able to make money through appreciation. Rents are going to go up over time. You're going to be able to depreciate the asset. So if you're making money somewhere else, you'll be able to save on taxes. There's a lot of joys to owning real estate. And if you own it for a really long time and let someone else pay off that mortgage over the next 10 or 15 years, you're going to hit a grand slam home run every single time. So buying rental real estate and owning it for the long haul, that's how you hit these grand slams every single time. When you're buying these subject to deals, I like to make sure that the property's deeded into my company's name. In Florida, we'll use a land trust in order to take title, but in Puerto Rico, we deed it right into our LLC. Anywhere else, we do it however the law of the land dictates, but we want to get the title put into our name. We want to be sending the money directly to the bank. We want to eliminate the seller altogether. So they're going to get some cash to go away, and then we can send them a report every month that shows that we're actually making the payment on their behalf. We're improving their credit. We're doing everything that we said that we're going to do, but we want to make sure that we have title to the property in our corporation or our land trust, depending on where we're doing business. All right, number 2, let's talk about seller financing, kind of in the same vein, but it's not subject to another mortgage. There are a lot of seller finance deals right now because interest rates have just shot up. They've just skyrocketed. So people, especially tired landlords, which is where I like to go to find my seller finance deals, they are in the business of collecting rental income monthly, and they're used to getting that monthly income. So if you find someone who wants to get out of the rental business, they'll oftentimes sell you things on seller financing. Also, these landlords, they own things free and clear. And so you don't have to buy it subject to anything. You just come up with your own terms. You negotiate with them the interest rate, the amortization schedule, the price. You've got multiple places where you can negotiate with someone who's willing to do a seller finance deal with you, where you can get a great deal. It used to be, again, that for us as value-add real estate investors, we were always looking to buy things way down at the bottom, pay cash for it, close quickly, then do the value add, and then either refinance it and rent it, or just rent it and get the cash flow, or sell it, depending on what the deal structure was that we were going in. Right now, we're looking way more heavily towards these seller finance deals because money's gotten so expensive, and real estate prices have really skyrocketed in most parts of the U.S. So we're not seeing the great deals where we can buy properties really, really cheap. Everybody's getting closer to the top of the market. And since they're getting closer to the top of the market, in order to make a good deal, we can make a great deal by getting good terms. So let's say, for instance, a seller is selling a $200,000 duplex and it rents for $1,500 a month, and they're not going to budge on the $200,000. You can give them the $200,000, and negotiate with them that you're going to give them, say, $1,000 a month. So in my example, if they want $200,000 and they're bringing in $1,500 a month, you might be able to make them an offer where you give them the $200,000 with 10% down or something like that, and then 7% interest amortized over 30 years. You'd have a payment at around $1,050 or $1,100 a month, and you'd be collecting rent at around $1,500, and you'd only have that small amount of money out of pocket. Guys, you can also negotiate these seller finance at 0 interest. You can negotiate them. Really, you get multiple places where you get to negotiate with the seller to get a good deal. So that could be that you get really good interest rate, a really long amortization schedule, no down payment whatsoever. There's multiple places where you can negotiate with the seller to make your deal more palatable for you and make it a better deal. So now when I'm doing seller finance deals, there are multiple ways that I will take title to the property or that I will structure the deal. You can set up with, if you're going to have very little money out of pocket, you can set it up basically as a rent to own. And as long as you have good paperwork, this is a very tried and true proven way for you to buy a piece of real estate. You can come in with basically just the same down payment that any renter would, but then have an option to purchase contract at an agreed upon price, and you can have a section of money that is rent, and then anything that you pay above the monthly rental actually goes towards your purchase, and then you have a set number of years in order to exercise your option. I love that strategy because you can get into a property at a very low cost out of pocket. This is a really great way for someone who's just getting started, or maybe even someone who's going to live in the property and wants to have that security of homeownership eventually. Negotiate with the landlord to give you a lease option. If you're renting from someone, let's say you're a renter and you've been in the property for a long time, I think today's market, it's a good thing for you to go to your landlord and tell them, hey, I'd be interested in buying the house. Will you give me an option to purchase it? We certainly have done that several times with our rentals. We've got a rental portfolio in Florida that we've done that on, and we have even done that on the island of Puerto Rico, where we give someone a lease option contract and they have a very low amount of money out of pocket, a reasonable rent, and then anything they can afford above that, they're paying towards buying the house. And then they have a certain number of years to pay us the amount of money that we've negotiated. So we like to do these seller finance deals both when we're selling and when we're buying. It's just another kind of tool that a real estate investor should have in your little tool chest so that you can close more deals, so that you can increase your rental portfolio. So who would actually sell you these seller finance deals? I've mentioned this one particular, these are tired landlords. I've mentioned them a few times throughout this video. Tired landlords are a great target seller for you to go and find people who would sell you on terms with seller financing. The other people who like to sell on seller financing are people that have land. So I see a lot of land is bought with seller financing because the banks don't like to lend on it. It generally speaking doesn't have cash flow. If you like to buy land and you like to sell land, buying and selling land is a very profitable way to be a real estate investor. Finding people who are selling land, oftentimes you can negotiate seller financing deals. People who losing their property to the tax deed. So with the sub 2 deals, I had you looking at the foreclosure list. With the seller financing deals, I would go and look at the tax deed sales. So the reason that I like to look at the tax deed sales in the States is because almost every house that's at a tax deed sale where someone's going to lose the house to not paying the taxes, they're usually a good deal, especially if there's a house there. They're in trouble. These are motivated sellers. So by looking at this list, it costs you nothing. It's easy to find. You can get it. You can door knock. You can go and speak to these people, and you can make great deals. Other people that would consider selling you things at seller financing, people who've had properties for sale for a long period of time, and they're just stuck on getting their number. Oftentimes, people who are selling properties, they don't have a mortgage on it, so they could potentially sell you things with seller financing. So it's not subject to, they don't have a mortgage to take over. They're just writing up a mortgage and note. You're asking them to become the bank for you, and you negotiate with them for the length, the terms, and the price. Guys, it's a beautiful way to become a real estate investor, and it's a wonderful way to increase your rental portfolio and hang on to great rental properties. Again, the more of these that you can close, the different strategies that you have, the better off you're going to be down the road, right? You don't always have to just negotiate the lowest price possible cash. You can get some great deals while giving the seller the asking price that they want and the terms that you want. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's a lot of ways for real estate investors to make money. This is a couple of methods that we're using right now in 2024 to increase our rental portfolio, both in the States and on the island of Puerto Rico. This isn't the only way that we're buying real estate, but I love these two strategies. So with that, give this video a like. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.